Hi, I'm Kelly Richardson, East Coast Sales Director for Lawson Brothers USA. And I am absolutely thrilled to death today because I have a very special guest all the way from the Ruwer Valley, Maximin von Schubert. Good day to you, sir.
Hi, Kelly.
So I understand that this state is pretty historical. Can you take us through the history of it a little bit, please?
Yeah, there's a history of nearly 38 years of my life being there. That's a very long period for me. The history of the estate is far longer. So there's the first document of 960 something, which is documenting that the monastery, and this was a long time a monastery of Holy Maximin, even 660. As a gift from King Dagobert to the monastery, but most probably even it has been already there in Roman times. So a long part of the Roman aqueduct is flowing throughout the estate. So there is a long time of history. My family is there only for 140 years since my great grandfather bought it in 1881. So I'm the sixth generation now, being able to run this estate.
So the sixth generation, but I understand the seventh generation is running around the winery, the heir and the spare, so to speak, correct?
That's correct. They actually tried to kill each other with a plastic chainsaw. Luckily, it's only plastic still, but yeah, there are two boys having fun here, being excited about forklifts, tractors, and bottling today. So it's good fun.
That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about the area that you're in the Ruwer Valley. You have vineyards, but you also have a forest up in. I understand that the boys had a little interaction with a baby boar at one point.
The estate is what you see behind me is our wine cellar and then the castle, and on the other side you see the different hillsides. So it's super steep. We are at the end, nearly where the Ruwer flows into River Mosel. It's the side valley of the river, and the vineyards are facing absolutely southwards. It's more or less parallel to the Saar Valley, and then when you jump into the river, then you are coming towards where Bernkastel and Early Lawson is. So we are ahead of them, of course. Our estate is a complete estate as it has used to be. So we used to have like 20 different kinds of cattle, which is none of them left. We have agricultural fields which are rented out. Actually, we have some grassland, and then we have some forest. So the Grüneberg is a half bowl, and on the south face there's the vineyard, and north, east, and west side it's forest, and on the plateau there's also some agricultural fields. So it's a closed, beautiful estate. And the main focus today is on winemaking. But when historically, actually, when you could look in the archives, if somebody was employed, they got like 1 kilo of meat cow, 2 kilos of goose, 2 kilos of boar, 2 kilos of honey, 5 meters of some oak trees for firewood, some wine, some apple juice, and everything. So the payment was the smallest part, and the biggest part was natural products they got from the estate. That changed a bit. The estate changed a bit, but that's the historic context of where we are working with.
But you still do use some of the natural products from your forest, correct? I mean, that's how you create your barrels. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely, yeah. So we have oak forest. Well, it's changing, but we have quite some older oaks, and we chop them in order to make own barrels out of it. So we saw it, and then it's laying in the rain for 4 to 5 years, and then we make own barrels for producing wines. So it's mainly foeder barrels, which is the measurement we have in the Mosel. 1,000 liter means foeder. And these barrels are the beginning, the first years where they give a little kiss of oak to the wine for the Pinot Blanc Reserve, and then afterwards, when they are ready and clean, which means that they don't give oak taste anymore, but they have still the beauty of a little bit of macro-oxidation, then we produce the Riesling into it. So that's a part of it. We have own water, the estate is has their own source, and yeah, to be completely self-sustaining. And today it could be changed to that quite fast, but it's not completely. So we also use supermarkets, unfortunately.
So you make your own barrels, and I can't even manage to grow basil to make pesto. So I guess you have one up on me on that one. So once the barrels hit the winery, what happens to them at that point?
So the difference is actually basil you can bring into a supermarket, but the oak trees don't fit in the supermarket. So we have to grow that by ourselves. Yeah, now it's great fun. So we have own honey because of own bees. We have own game because of hunting them on the estate, and there's quite some things which makes it quite charming. But what was the question here?
The question was about what you do with your barrels once they get into the cellar.
Yeah, the first 2 to 3 vintages are Pinot Blanc Reserve, so a style of Pinot Blanc, on the 2 years, and gets a little kiss of barrique, and then that's like 2 times, which is 4 years, and then they are clean in terms of oak taste, and then they are ready for Riesling. So we have some Pinots as a niche. It's 5% Pinot Blanc, 5% Pinot Noir, roughly, and 90% Riesling. So, but that's a beautiful side product of using these own oak barrels in order to have this little kiss of oak giving to wine, which is the Pinot Blanc Reserve at that time.
So you mentioned Riesling there. Let's talk a little bit. Let's get away from the basement and what we're doing with the barrels, and let's get outside in the vineyards and tell us a little bit about them.
So we have 3 monopoly-owned vineyards, which is all at one piece, which is absolutely unique. I will show you in my background now. We're actually on that side here, that's the smallest of the vineyards, which is called Ruwer. That's the brother or the monk which used to work there. On the top of the hill, and the furthest up is Herrenberg, which is the choir master, and directly behind me is Abtsberg. That's the steepest part. So it was a monastery for more than 1,000 years. And they, of course, were very, like Catholic churches, a very clear hierarchy. And this hierarchy was clear. Buderberg, this was the most sour stuff they had at that time, totally fine and ripe today. And then choir master, there was the guys who were electing the abbey, so that was quite good. Herrenberg, and then the abbot, which was the Abtsberg. They are all Grand Crus. They're all classified as Grand Crus, they are very special and very different. So the Buderberg here is covered on top by the oak trees. It's southeast half of Reno, and it's ripening the last. It's has very wild. Spontaneous east notes always, and it's quite a character, and there's only 1 hectare. Then on the top, Herrenberg, there's planted the Pinot Blanc as well, and 90% Riesling. It has a little bit reddish slate, or it's a Devonian slate with some layers of iron inside. So that's a very round but spicy style. The wines have a very good nutrient supply. And then directly behind me, the Abtsberg, which is really pure Devonian slate. So we tried the last year to always bring out some grass seeds, but they are always burned away by the sun. So that's very pure. And the wines are very salty and mineralic and very pure and fine. Yeah, that's the one hill Maximin Grünhaus divided in these 3 Grand Cru plots.
I love it. A drinking hierarchy. Only the Catholic Church can figure that out. I mean, I always think of drinking as a religious experience, but I'm glad I'm not the only one. But those aren't the only Rieslings you make. You have a brand new project, don't you?
Yeah, we have. When I took over the estate 7 years ago, we started with Maximin, which is the first time a wine from our estate, which is not focusing on the plots. So when I grew up, I opened the curtain and I saw the vineyard, and when I went to sleep, I closed the curtain. I always saw this one vineyard, but then we started to diversify a bit and having the chance to have an extra. That's working very well. It's our kind of bridge in order to a next generation. It has our steaming horse from our family crest on it, and it's called Maximin. That wasn't that complicated, since I'm called Maximin, my son's also, and it's a quite normal name for us. But yeah, it's a pure style of classic Riesling with everything what we love from the area: balance of acidity and a little bit of fruit. Perfect drinking skills. So when you open the bottle, you barely have the chance to close it again before it's empty. And yeah, it stands for Riesling. It stands for Mosel, Ruwer, and it's just a fun wine. And the entry to what we produce in Maximin Grünhaus with that more classic and well-known label.
Well, you're unlikely to forget the name of the wine, at least. And, you know, aside from all the Rieslings that you make, you also make a fair amount of red wine there, correct?
Yeah, a fair amount always depends on what you mean on fair amount. But directly behind me, there's in the super steep slopes my father planted 20 years ago, some Pinot Noir, and a fair amount. When you look in Ruwer Valley, we are probably the biggest producer of Pinot Noir in Ruwer Valley, but we are probably one of the only ones. We have a little bit more than a hectare, which means 3,000 bottles around. So it's a super niche. But luckily, we have a size of the winery here that we can produce the wines like we want to drink them, and we are pretty big fans of Pinot grapes, and especially Pinot Noir. So that's a really hard product. It's a fun product, and we like it the way it is. It's classic Pinot Noir, super fine, but it has the spiciness of what Maximin Grünhaus is. So it's we love it, but it's only 3,000 liters. But 3,000 bottles, but it is 3,000 bottles, so we are selling something and we can't drink it all ourselves. But that gives the chance for somebody else to taste it.
Well, I'm pretty sure if you applied yourself, you could probably put a dent into those 3,000 bottles, but we're actually glad that you don't, so we can get some over here in the US.
But we have to drink some Riesling in between, yeah? So that's not only 3,000 bottles of Pinot Noir we have to drink. So that's why we said, okay, some locals.
That's awesome. And a very fun fact that most people don't know, Germany is the third largest producer of Pinot Noir, which is a fact that seems to be a mystery to everybody, but it's pretty exciting. And, you know, the other thing I wanted to touch on a little bit, because here in the United States, we treat climate change as witchcraft. And, you know, I can only imagine that it doesn't really exist. It's a conspiracy theory. But you guys have a very different approach to climate change in Germany. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's a fact. When I just look on when I was a kid, 30 years ago, the harvest started 4 weeks later. So now we are 4 weeks earlier. We start in mid of September, and at the same time, flowering is 4 weeks earlier, and bud break as well. And early bud break is the biggest risk for us because of the long frost period. We are still we have a much bigger risk on that. On the other hand, yeah, the Pinots. 20 years ago, my father planted Pinots. Everybody thought he's a little bit crazy, but today we're getting overripe faster than not ripe. So on the other hand, I see it, as I said, we have these enclosed forests here around, and the needle trees are dying because of too little water, lots of bugs. We have problems with esca, which is a fungus disease in the vines. Yeah, it's super fast. How fast it's changing. It's always a generation game. Yes. So in a winery like ours, you're like, I have a period of 30 years. I can do the things I think are the best. But everything I decide on the vineyard and in the forest even longer, it's always something I decide for the next or the generation after that. So I plant trees which can be harvested by my great grandchildren, and I plant vineyards which are probably getting really good when my son is taking over and my grandson is taking over. So that's always a multi-generation game. And as fast as the changes have been now, they haven't been in the last decades. So yes, climate change in a dramatic way. Even though at the moment, sometimes when the frost doesn't hit us, it's getting always super ripe. We have a extreme run of super vintages. They're smaller and bigger in size, but quality-wise, we are very, very stable during the last decades. And when I looked back to my grandfather's time, sometimes vintages didn't get ripe. And that's not the case anymore. So we are always ripe. It's always superb. It's rather having been hit by frost, having been hit by hail, or what is making the vintage smaller, but quality quite stable.
So a historic estate with a forward-thinking way about the future. I'm very excited for what's to come down the pike from Maximin Grünhaus. And I am thrilled that you could join us today to have a little conversation with us and tell us a little bit about your background, your history, your boys. It all sounds super exciting. So thank you so much, Maximin, for joining us. And we hope to be seeing you soon in Germany as soon as we're allowed out with not accompanied by an adult, which right now no American is. So hope to see you in Germany soon, or at least you in the United States. And until then, Prost.
Prost. Thank you, Kelly. I always take any time I can share with you. You know that. And since I'm not able to travel, then we Zoom. So I'm happy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ciao.